بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا وقدوتنا محمد عليه أفضل الصلاة وأزكى التسليم. اللهم علمنا بما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما يا رب العالمين. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, everybody. Welcome to Beginning Classical Arabic. And I'd like to start today with something that was bothering me from last class. Okay, so let's go to one example that I had explained in a way that was incorrect. And I felt somewhere in myself that the way I explained it was not correct, and I returned to the books, and sure enough, there's actually a really educative point here going on in example number 3. So remember last class we had لماذا المدرس غضبان اليوم. Okay, and we puzzled for a second. Okay, we learned that this pattern, this phonetic pattern, kasilano. All right, if we're making a pattern, we're going to call it fa'lanu. That's the name of the pattern because we always use fa, ayn, and lam in Arabic to make phonetic patterns. So this pattern, we said, is mamnu' min as-sarf, right? It is indeclinable. All right, and we came to this right here, and we had a question. One of the questions was, why doesn't it have alif lam? We know why it doesn't have tanween, because it is mamnu' min as-sarf. Why doesn't it have alif lam? And I had said because mamnu' min as-sarf prevents it from having alif lam as well, and that's not correct at all. That's not correct at all. And what had confused me when I was looking at this example is that everything that we were doing in this lesson was in pairs of Sifah Mawsoof, right? And so the Sifah had to follow the Mawsoof in 4 things. It had to follow it in gender, it had to follow it in number, had to follow it in grammatical case and definiteness, okay? But none of these examples here are Sifah Mawsoof. They are simple mubtada khabar. Ana jaw'an, ana mubtada, jaw'anu khabar. Right? There's no Sifah Mawsoof going on. So there's no requirement that jaw'anu follows the mubtada in definity. In fact, it won't, because it's the khabar, right? The khabar, if it's a simple ism, which it is in this case, it's going to be nakira. Nakira in normal circumstances, being indefinite, will demonstrate that fact with a tanween. However, this particular adjective, jaw'anu, anything on this phonetic pattern, is called mamnu' min as-sarf. And so it's not going to be possible that it has tanween. Okay, so this is going on in every single one of these exercises in this example. Anta jaw'anu, again, mubtada khabar. La, ana atshanu, mubtada khabar. Limada, and this even more so, even though it's got a couple bells and whistles. It's got limada, which is a question, and al-yawma, which is part of specifying the time. But the base of the sentence is simply mubtada khabar. Al-mudarrisu ghadbanu. Right? That's the basis of the sentence if we're going to strip it to its most essential meaning. The teacher is angry. Mubtada khabar. So, ghadbanu is the khabar. It is nakira, but it is mamnu' min as-sarf. And so it will not ever have a tanween. It doesn't have an alif lam simply because it's khabar. And khabar is nakira. Whereas limada just adds a question, and al-yawm, it specifies the time. And I went back to Alfiya ibn Malik, which is one of the standard texts of Arabic grammar, and was reading as to what makes this particular phonetic pattern mamnu' min as-sarf. What makes it indeclinable? Remember that the definition of mamnu' min as-sarf means no tanween and no kasra. Won't happen. Okay? And the reason behind this class of words is because there are some times when a when a word resembles a verb or resembles another type of word. Okay, and this led me to answer inadvertently one of another question that had been asked in the classes. How do you tell the difference? How do you tell the difference between the dual, let's say kitaban, which means 2 books, and something like this, which is Jo'an? And then what makes it different between a dual form of a verb, like yaf'alan? They both did something. And if this is going to be a little bit advanced for some of us, and that's not a problem. Just enjoy the ride, and then we'll go back to the normal lesson. Okay, inshallah. So this is the verb that it resembles. So just like if an ism resembles a harf, it becomes what we say mabni, right? Means it's indeclinable, such as, for example, Isa, Musa, these sorts of things. Okay? Mamnu' min as-sarf is something similar when we have an ism that resembles a fi'l. It resembles a verb. So this is the verb that these phonetic forms are resembling. You can see kitaban and jo'an resemble yaf'alan. Or even better yet, past tense, fa'lan. There you go, right there. It looks almost exactly the same. It is exactly the same from our pattern that we made up here. Okay, so what distinguishes them all? Okay, one of the answers that I came across is that second letter sakina, fa'lan. Yes, it is. And here it's not fa'alan. Sorry, I just saw your question. One of the answers is what happens when we go to the feminine, and we haven't learned that yet, but we will learn that. If we go to the feminine, okay, kitab is not feminine, but let's take something, okay, I'm not finding an example right now, but we'll just go to Jo'an. If we go to Jo'an, the feminine is not, we do not make the feminine by adding a ta marbuta. We have an entirely different phonetic pattern. We have, what is it here? Pardon me, because we don't really use it very often, or at least I don't. Right, it's going to be Jo'a. So basically, because this type of word, kasilano, jo'anu, atshanu, it has an alif and a nun. And because its feminine form is very different, this is what makes it mamnu' min as-sarf. If that's the only thing that you take away from this, that's what I'm trying to get at. Okay? We're wondering, what is it so specifically about kasilanu, jo'anu, atshanu, these words, that makes it mamnu' min as-sarf? 2 things. The alif and the nun that's added onto it, and the fact that it gets even crazier once we make it feminine. Whereas a dual object has very, very regular, even if it has an alif and a nun, it has a very, very regular pattern of becoming feminine. Okay. Whew. All right. So I climbed down the rabbit hole for that one because it was bothering me. Most important point to get is that al-mudarrisu ghadbanu is mubtada khabar. Al-mudarrisu is mubtada, and so it's ma'rifa. Ghadbanu is khabar, and so it's nakira. And the only thing preventing it from having tanween is that it's mamnu' min as-sarf. It is indeclinable. Whew. Okay, thank you for indulging me with that aside. We covered most of the...
Can I ask a question, please?
Yes, please do.
I'm sorry. So, kasilano, if we go an example number 3, we just did, you re-explain number 4. But if we do number 3, there is fasalun, talibun, kaslanun, or it should be kaslanu.
No, it will always be kasilano. Yes, it is. And I think there was some. I might have misspoken before when we first began this. It will always be kasilano. It will never have a second tanween. It will never take tanween. Ever,
Oh,
ever.
all right. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. How do you explain the question before the exercise?
The question clearly says, keep in mind the rule pertaining to adjectives ending in a in an. So that means that these are adjectives. I don't understand.
1 second. In the class. The instructions right here. ضع في المكان. That's what we're talking about.
No, no, below this, the one the exercise you just walked us through now.
And there is the alif and noon. That's what they're talking about.
Yeah, and so it actually the question is read keeping in mind the rule pertaining to adjectives. So they are saying that these are all adjectives. So
Yeah,
if these are adjectives, then why do we think that they are khabar?
because they're ism. Adjective and sifa is what we call, like, they are sifa in how they function in the sentence. However,
Mhm.
in Arabic, how we break up words, sifa is an example or a type of ism.
Okay, but I think what's not clear to me is that we just spent a whole lesson talking about how the adjective had to follow the noun every time. It had to match the noun. And so we kept doing that. And then there was nothing to indicate that this was going to change, except suddenly this exercise gets thrown at us
Yes.
and the rules change. But there was nothing in the whole lesson, so it was like a real curveball here.
Yeah.
And so I have to confess that everything you've done so far, I didn't understand. I'm sorry.
No. That's fine. Here's maybe one of the points of confusion. Before, okay, before we were getting a pair of sifa mawsoof that was always part of the same part of speech, right? We They made it so easy for us, it was almost lulled us into a false sense of security where they gave us every sifa and mawsoof was part of the khabar, right? It's like, so Muhammadun mubtada, talibun mujtahidun. Okay, right? But then what they did here was they split it over the mubtada and the khabar. So we have in these examples, we have what's technically a sifa, yes, which is a type of ism in Arabic, kaslanu, jo'anu, utshanu, but it is alone in the khabar, okay? And in English grammar, we would say, okay, easy. This is sifa mawsoof. This is an adjective, and what it describes is ana. I am hungry. But in Arabic grammar, we wouldn't say that. We would say that this is mubtada khabar, because the mubtada, now the sifa isn't following the mawsoof in all those four things, right? If the mubtada here is ma'rifa, if we call this sifa, and this mawsoof, then this has to follow in being ma'rifa, which it doesn't. Why doesn't it? Because it's split over the mubtada and khabar. Neither is it both part of the mubtada or both of them part of the khabar. Okay, so let's talk about this. Maybe this is a useful way to think about it. When we say the word sifa, okay, we can be talking about a category of word, something that describes. Okay, in which case, we've had these types of words before. If we said, for example, very early on, we said Muhammadun tawilun, right? And this is technically, tawil is a sifa, if we're talking about the type of word it is, right? It describes Muhammad. However, within a sentence, it is not a construction of sifa mawsoof. Does that make any sense at all? Because it's not paired with it in such a way that the rules of agreements apply to it. You have to agree with the four things. Why don't they apply? Because this is an is statement. The difference between the mubtada and the khabar, you put a big fat is right there. Muhammad is tall. And that is, or that place where we cross over from the mubtada to the khabar, basically means that all bets are off when it comes to Sifah Mawsoof. We're not dealing with Sifah Mawsoof anymore, such that the Sifah has to follow the Mawsoof in the four things. So whereas Tawil is technically a Sifah in that it describes something, and it specifically describes what's in the Mubtada. It's not part of the pairing construction of Sifah Mawsoof, where the rules of agreement apply. If all we do is add a word to the sentence, we say Muhammadun rajulun tawilun. Then we have Sifah, Tawil, Rajul, Mawsoof. Both in the sense that Tawil is a Sifah, as in the category of word it is, and grammatically in the sense that we have a pair, a construction here, where there are certain rules of agreement that apply between these two words.
Okay, so I'm gonna now connect this to like a long time ago when we were talking about the something is sweet, the dessert is sweet, or whatever. The apple is sweet, like those examples.
Yeah.
So this is like that basically.
Yeah.
So this is like the earlier, like we did a long time back, which was the apple is sweet and the tea is hot or whatever those things were, right? So
Yeah.
this is like that.
Yeah.
Okay. So is there a logical process by which we can examine the sentence so that we can spot what the difference is? Because now I'm not clear, because if you go up now to Faisal, the one with the Faisal who's the lazy student. So according to me now, Faisal is the mubtada, and
Yeah.
then the khabar is student.
Yes.
So then it would be Faisalun talibu, and then so this would be kaslanu.
It will be Faisalun Talibun Kaslanu,
Why would it be talibun?
because it's khabar. If we're drawing our line here, Faisalun is the name of a boy, right? Or the name of a man.
So talibu, right?
Without tanween,
Yeah.
how could it not have tanween? It's nakira, it's khabar.
Oh.
The only possible way it could have neither alif lam nor tanween is if it's one mamnu' min as-sarf, like kaslanu, or if it were part of a mudaf ilayh, if we had, like, for example, talibul madrasati,
Mm-hmm.
right? But if it's going to be by itself here, the relationship between these two words, that's what we have to account for. What's the relationship between these two words? It's Sifah Mawsoof, okay? Which means that talibun has to be nakira. It doesn't, the relationship of Sifah Mawsoof doesn't do any work upon the Mawsoof, right? As opposed to mudaf ilayh. Mudaf ilayh, that mudaf ilayh does work on the mudaf such that it loses its alif lam. However, Sifah Mawsoof, the Sifah does no work on the Mawsoof. All the Sifah has to do is follow the Mawsoof in four things, unless we get something weird, like this is mamnu' min as-sarf.
Okay. Okay. So I guess I'm just trying to see what I would do if I was not you know sitting with a book open, and if I just came across an ayah in the Quran and I'm just wondering how I would approach it. So I guess I have to always begin with, is this sentence uh, is this a nominal sentence or a verbal sentence? Then the next thing I'll say is, okay, where's the line for the mubtada and the khabar? Like I literally always have to do that
Pretty much,
every time.
yeah.
Yeah.
If we lose track in Arabic grammar, if we lose track for a second of where the mubtada ends and where the khabar begins, or what are the appropriate parts of the sentence, then yes, the whole thing gets lost, right? So that's why I tried to drill it into your heads when we were doing it before. Where's the mubtada? Where's the khabar? What type of sentence is this? Okay, what are the parts of this sentence, right? Because
Okay, so I'm so sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
oh, not at all.
So I guess now I'm trying to distinguish between, you know, the previous exercise where we said, for example, Abbasun Tajirun Shahirun, where we did the whole Sifa Mawsoof thing.
Yeah.
But suddenly now with Faisalun, Talibun, Kaslanun, we changed our minds. What was the difference between those two examples?
There is no difference. No, you're right. This is the same example. The only difference is the type of phonetic pattern that kasilano exists within.
Ah, okay.
It's impossible for it to take a tanween.
Okay. So the reason for Kaslanu not being not having a tanween is not actually anything to do with um okay.
Correct.
So this is actually Sifa Mawsoof. The Talibun is
Talibun kaslanu is sifa mawsoof.
Sifa Mawsoof, but the reason for Kaslanu not having a tanween is not related to Sifa Mawsoof. It's related to Mamnu min as-sarf.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Purely phonetic.
Okay, and I think Alhamdulillah that I understand now.
Okay. Anybody else? Any questions? And I apologize for the confusion about this. I mean, it's. I think I'll take responsibility for it. It's mostly my fault.
No, I think actually we learned a painful and important lesson, which is that we should never forget that we have to begin from nominal and verbal. Like, so we should never think we can skip that step because now we're advanced or anything.
Right. No, that's no matter where you go. And especially when you get into the Quran, because when you get into the Quran, Allah Azza wa Jal is not using usually very, very simple sentences like this. Right? He's often using complicated like sentence structures and looping back to things that he said before and putting things in interesting places that are purposeful, right? He's putting the khabar before the mubtada to give emphasis to this, and he's delaying the question, all these sorts of things, right? And so it's even more important when we go to the Quran to be able to keep track of what type of sentence is this, first of all. Second of all, what are the parts of that sentence? And third of all, where can I demarcate? Where can I draw the line between the different parts of that sentence? And if you can keep that straight in a sentence, then the meaning becomes clear, right? Because how those parts of the sentence link up, that's exactly where the meaning lies.
I think then if everyone in the class is okay with it, I wonder if maybe just for some time for future exercises, whenever we work on an exercise, if we could always do that step, just so that we sort of train our minds to never approach anything without having identified that.
Sure.
I mean,
Yeah.
I don't mean to slow things down.
Oh no. No.
Obviously, it's if everybody's comfortable with it.
No, that's a good suggestion. Or at least I'll pepper it in more. It's always a balance. Making sure we bring it along with us so that the lessons are cumulative. Very good. We worked through it. Alhamdulillah. Anybody have any other questions about that before we continue? We had halfway finished the examples. Okay. I think we're good to go. Let's go to the Sheikh family. Could you, let's see, read the next 4 lines? So I'll write a line here, right here, and alternate between the two of you.
Okay. لماذا تلك سيارة الجميلة؟
Look at the very, very first word again. What's that?
No, liman.
There you go. I knew it was just that.
I was just testing you.
I need testing.
Yeah.
هي لل
مدير.
هي للمدير الجديد.
Very good. Yep, keep going.
لمن هذا الكتاب الكبير؟
Good.
أهو للمدير مدرسي.
مدرسي. Yep.
مدرسي.
لا هو للطالبات الصغيرة.
Jump down. You jumped down the line, but you read it well. You gave it a kasra, even though despite the dhamma here, it's jadidi. But you did well. Great job. So let's translate first. Okay, Sister Asma, what's the first line?
To who does this Jamilati beautiful car?
Yes. Whose is it? Good. And the answer is pretty obvious. Okay. And then what's down here? What's this question?
And then liman to who kitabu kabira is kabira great book or
Yeah.
big?
It could be great. It could be big, depending on the context that they understand. And Dr. Zia, what's the last line translate to?
No.
No, it belongs to the new student.
Yes, very good. Okay. Now,
The one's asking, does it belong? Is it teachers, mudiri?
yeah, there's a
The principal.
huwa, and huwa returns to the book because book is masculine. Ahuwa lil mudarrisi. Is it the teachers? La huwa lit talib al jadidi. No, it's the new students. Very good. Now, okay, let's take what Sister Masarrat recommended, and this is useful, especially with these questions. Let's go back to this first line here. What type of sentence is it, first of all? Second of all, where's the mubtada and where's the khabar?
Ism, because it's asking who it belongs to, nouns in there.
Good, yes.
And then
Tricky.
I think the sayaratu is the khabar. No. Sayaratu Jamila is the mubtada thing, and then the no.
It's difficult. It is difficult, right? Look, especially with questions. Okay.
I think it's the Sayyaratu Jamilatu is the khabar.
Okay.
And the other part is the mubtada.
That's a great guess. It's completely backwards, but it's a great guess. So how can we tell? That's the question. If we don't know, how can we tell? The way you can tell is state the answer. Use the same words of the sentence and imagine that you're not asking a question anymore, but imagine that you're making a statement. We would say, تلك السيارة الجميلة للمدير الجديد. Right? In which case, all of this is the mubtada. تلك السيارة الجميلة, and liman is the khabar. Wait a second, Imam. Why is it in the beginning of the sentence? Because as we said in Arabic, we always put in the beginning the part that we're asking about. So if you're confused about what's mubtada, what's khabar, what am I dealing with, straighten out the sentence by making it into a statement, and it will become clear. Here it's easy. Here lil mudir al jadidi, easy. Mubtada, khabar, Sifah Mawsoof. Right? No problem. Here, tricky. If we're going to write out the whole thing, it would be tilka sayaratul jamilatu. That's mubtada. That's what we're asking about. Liman is whose. Literally is whose. Right? So all of this is, or I should say, what we have here is we have an ismul ishara, we have a demonstrative pronoun, and then we have sifa mawsoof. And al-jamilatu follows as-sayaratu in the four things. It follows it in number, in gender, feminine, singular, marfu' and ma'rifa. Alif lam, alif lam. Right? And the same thing holds for down here, exactly the same thing, except this is a masculine example. If we wanted to say in a statement form, liman hadha al-kitabu al-kabiru, we would say, hadha al-kitabu al-kabiru lil-mudarrisi, or in this case, lit-talibi al-jadidi. And so that reveals that the mubtada is actually these three words, hadha al-kitabu al-kabiru. Very good. Not easy. The questions make it tricky. Let's keep rolling. Can we do Sayyid family? Can you do the next 4 lines or the remaining 4 lines? Alternating.
Sorry, I actually
Yes.
so I mean just last week or whatever, you know, in lesson 1, the everything we did was that the demonstrative pronoun is the mubtada and then the object is the khabar, right?
Good.
So this liman was confusing me, and so I said, okay, tilka, that's the same as hadha kitabun. So tilka would be the mubtada, and then the beautiful cow would be the khabar, except it's definite. So that doesn't make sense.
Fantastic. Thank you for asking that question. I'm glad that you did. So 2 things here. First of all, you're right that it should alert you, or a bell should go off when you notice that as-sayaratul jamilatu has alif lam. So it's ma'rifa. Okay. So that should clue you in first right away that, okay, wait a second, this might not be khabar. Okay. Second of all, think about philosophically, what is the khabar? The khabar is information about the subject, right? What's the subject? Okay, here we see tilka. We know with certainty that tilka is part of the subject. Our question now is what follows tilka, is that information about tilka, as in we're saying an is statement, is this, is that? Or is it the self same noun that tilka is referring to? And the answer
Right.
is the latter.
Okay, alhamdulillah, that makes sense. That makes sense. So so really this is not about this is a car, this is about whose car. That's what it's about. Okay.
And if you want a very, very simple way to discern, you always have to ask yourself, where does the word is fall? If I'm going to translate this sentence into English, tilka sayaratul jamilatu liman, or liman tilka sayaratul jamilatu, where does is fall? We would say that beautiful car is whose? Why it's different from everything we did, again, because previously everything we did was very, very simple sentences. We only dealt with Sifah Mawsoof only in the khabar, and only in very simple, you know, this is that statements. Now we're seeing Sifah Mawsoof pop up in the mubtada. If we straighten this whole thing out, both of these lines, we'll get Sifah Mawsoof in both the mubtada and the khabar. If we say, for example, تلك السيارة الجميلة للمدير الجديد. That's the full information that they're giving us here.
Right.
We have a Sifah in the mubtada, we have a Sifah Mawsoof in the khabar.
So in the past we said, for example, we said tilka sayyaratun, okay, and that was simple. And then we've also said tilka sayyaratun jamilun.
Yes.
And so what changed here is the question. The question came in, and so it shook everything basically.
Yeah.
Okay, alhamdulillah, I think I.
No, very good, very good. Yeah, no. The level of difficulty from this lesson to the previous examples, it was ramped way up. You know, like to give you now. Okay, now you're seeing all of the variables that they had kept constant in the previous lesson. They're changing all of them at once, right? Like now they're changing where you're seeing the Sifah Mawsoof pair. It used to be just the khabar. Now it could be the khabar. It could be the mubtada. You're not just dealing with statements anymore. Now you're dealing with statements and you're dealing with questions. And so when you have questions, the question word creeps to the front and it kind of throws off your orientation of what type of sentence we're dealing with here, and so on and so forth. So it's not, it's challenging. It's challenging. Okay, so let's go back to, yes, these 4 last lines of this part, this exercise for the Sayyid family, inshallah.
أين الملعقة الصغيرة؟
Good.
هي في الكوب.
Yes.
أين الكرسي المكسور؟
هو هناك.
Fantastic.
هو هناك.
Yes, excellent, fantastic. Now let's translate line for line.
Where is that small spoon?
It's what's
In the cup.
oh, it's inside the cup or in the cup.
Either way, correct.
And where is, oh, sorry, where is that broken chair? Oh, where is broken chair?
It's over there.
Yes, exactly. And the only minor thing, because I like to pick on Dr. Musa, we will
Yeah.
get the instead of that. There's no evidence for that in the sentence. However, there is evidence for the, alif lam.
Yes.
But that's fantastic. Great job. Okay, now the tricky questions. Okay. أين الملعقة الصغيرة? Excuse me, الصغيرة. What type of sentence? Where's the mubtada and, oh, okay, I just gave you the answer. Where's the mubtada and khabar?
Yeah, جملة اسمية.
It's جملة اسمية, and مبتدا is ملعقة صغيرة.
Yeah, very good. And the khabar is أين.
أين.
Good. See, this makes sense because what are we talking about? Subject is the small spoon, right? What do we want to know about the small spoon? The information, the predicate of the subject is where is it, right? So if we're going to untangle the sentence and straighten it out, it would be al-mil'aqatu saghiratu bil kubi, right? Al-mil'aqatu saghiratu is the mubtada, is the subject. Fil kubi would be the answer and the khabar, if we're all making one sentence. Very good. But we don't have just one sentence like that. We have an independent sentence. Hiya fil kubi. So break that down for us, Sister Syra. Where's the, what type of sentence and what are its parts and where are its parts?
جملة اسمية.
Yes, good.
هي
Good. There's the mubtada. And your khabar is just the rest of it.
yes.
And this, we should recognize it as a prepositional phrase, jar and majroor. So bi is a fixed preposition. It makes al-kubi, just like Dr. Syra had read, with a kasra. And that's what it's going to be. This entire thing is the khabar. And the second example is the same. Okay. We have run out of time, and we took up a lot of class explaining and working through some stuff, which I hope was beneficial. I hope it was beneficial to wade through the weeds and go through that stuff, just so we clearly understand what we're going through. Yes, we had a suggestion from one of the students. If we wanted to make any sort of either WhatsApp group or Telegram group or any sort of thing that would send out reminders to people, or if you would prefer reminders for email for the class time, because sometimes the class time shift and things like that. So if there's any interest in that sort of thing, you can either reply in the chat box right now, or you can send me an email. You all have my email. And if there's enough interest to warrant it, then I see. Oh, okay. I didn't realize that Telegram didn't show numbers. MashaAllah. Okay, that's good to know. So if there's interest in that, we can do that. And it seems like there might be. So we will keep you posted on that, inshallah. And if there, I guess we'll start a Telegram group, and also try to maybe send out reminders to email as well. And are there any other questions about anything that we've covered?
I have a question other than this contest about the Taraweeh. Are we having a Taraweeh online?
We will have an official announcement about that, inshallah. The Arabic classes, we'll keep it to Arabic. But good question. Yeah, we're in the process of making it official, and we will let you know.
Inshallah.
Barakallahu feekum. Okay, thank you very much, everybody. Jazakumullah khairan. Excellent work, great job, and thank you for all your questions as always. And I will see you soon, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Alaikum salam.